Do you have some old lighting in your home that looks like this and can use a cute and inexpensive upgrade? For this project, I started by heading to the Dollar Tree and picking up 2 foam core boards. First, I measured the light fixture above my sink. Using a large ruler and cutting mat, I cut my foam boards to size. I cut one piece measuring 20.5 inches by 8 inches and 2 side pieces measuring 12 inches by 8 inches. Next, I scored a vertical line at the 10-inch mark on each of the 12-inch pieces. Be careful not to cut all the way through the foam board. You only want to score it deeply enough to create a clean fold. Then I bent the smaller 2-inch section backward. To assemble the cover, I taped the pieces together. Starting with the large center panel, I placed packing tape along the edge so that half of the tape extended beyond the board. I then attached one side panel perpendicular to the centerpiece, creating a right angle. Once everything was secure, I laid lightweight quilt batting over the assembled cover and cut it to size, leaving a couple inches of overhang on all sides. Using a spray adhesive, I attached the batting, working from one side to the other to keep it smooth and wrinkle-free. After covering the front and sides, I flipped the piece over and secured the excess batting to the back. To help the corners lay flat, I cut small slits before folding the material over. I also trimmed away any excess and left the small 2-inch end flaps uncovered. Next came the fun part, adding fabric. I chose a soft beige gingham that coordinates perfectly with my decor. I cut a piece of fabric long enough to wrap around the entire cover, leaving several extra inches on each side. Then, using more spray adhesive, I attached the fabric starting on one short side and slowly working my way across, smoothing out any wrinkles as I went. The center section on the back still needed to be covered, so I cut a coordinating strip of fabric and attached it. The seams looked a little unfinished, so I covered the edges with some bias tape I already had on hand. A little hot glue was all it took, and it gave the project a polished, finished look. To install the cover, I added command strips to the back of the 2-inch flaps and attached it directly over my existing bathroom light fixture. I also made sure there was enough clearance for my medicine cabinet door to open properly. And that's it. Now I have a custom light cover that hides the outdated, rusty fixture and blends beautifully with the rest of my home decor.
When you are in the container aisle of the dollar store, pick up a couple of white wire shelves. Flip one shelf upside down and lay the second shelf on top, overlapping about a third of the shelf. Now take some zip ties and connect the shelves together. Be sure to pull tight on the zip ties so the shelves are securely tied to each other. Remove the rubber tips from the ends of the shelves. Grab each arm on the shelves and bend them from their 90-degree angle to about a 45-degree angle. Next, give the entire shelf unit a coat of spray paint. This is the perfect shelf caddy for holding rolled up hand towels and washcloths. Grab a short glass container with a screw-on lid. Take a large marble and glue it to the center of the lid. Next, spray paint both the glass container and the screw-on lid. To style your new jar, take a small wood cutting board from the kitchen and use it as a tray to hold the jar and other beauty products.
Grab some 2x2s to increase your bathroom storage in a few easy steps. I cut 4 2x2s to 6 feet each and cut 6 to 19 inches, and I cut another 6 to 4 inches each. I sanded all the boards, then used my Craig jig to drill pocket holes in each side of the smallest 2x2. I secured the 4-inch boards to the 19-inch boards with pocket screws and wood glue, and used a countersink bit to pre-drill the long 2x2 to the rectangle frame. I filled the screw holes with wood filler on the front side only and sanded the excess off smooth once dry. I wiped, cleaned, and painted the frame. While that was drying, I sanded cedar 1x6 boards, ripped them down to size, and sealed them with 2 coats of polyurethane. I used a brad nailer to secure the cedar boards to the top of each rectangle base and slid the shelf over my toilet.
I found this door on Facebook Marketplace, and it was finally time to put it to use. The first step was to remove my existing bathroom door. After measuring my new door, I purchased a 1x8 to act as my header. We leveled it off and bolted it to 4 studs. Securing the track was easy, as the barn door kit I ordered from Amazon came with everything I needed. After the track was hung, we drilled 4 holes into the top of the door, attached the hanging brackets, and secured them with the included bolts. To finish it off, I added some privacy cling film, since this is a bathroom after all. This was super easy to use as it bonds to glass with just water.
I wanted to give this wall behind a toilet a feature without spending money. We'd recently changed the flooring and I had one box of luxury vinyl plank flooring left over. I started with the first plank at the top of the wall. I made sure it was level. I continued attaching pieces and securing them with the nail gun. At the bottom, I cut the plank so that it wouldn't interfere with the water line. The wall was looking great, but I needed to work on the trim pieces at the end. Since there were leftover materials lying around, I bought some L brackets and attached them to the 1x4 pieces. I then set these where I wanted them on the wall, made sure they were level, and attached them. I ran down to the hardware store and picked up 2 sheets of beadboard. Then I measured and cut the beadboard down to size using a table saw. I attached it to the wall with my nail gun. It took no time at all. The next step was to add a wood border to the top. I used very inexpensive common board. Then I painted the top of it before attaching it to the wall. When I attached the board, there was a small gap between the wood and beadboard, but it was easy to fill this gap using paintable caulking. Once that dried, I got started with painting. In order to finish off my beadboard accent, I added hooks.
If your bathroom is outdated, I've got the perfect DIY that's going to completely transform the space. Okay, we're gonna add wallpaper to this little section in the bathroom, and I got my wallpaper from Rocky Mountain Decals. You need to make sure the top goes in the top, and there's 1 and 2. We're renovating all areas of our bathroom, but you could easily just do these 2 things and it will still make such a big impact. I put up wallpaper on the wall behind our toilet. First, I started with the top corner. You want to place the wallpaper a little higher than the wall and a little further to the left so it overlaps. You can cut off the extra, don't worry. I just pull down the backing a little bit as I go. It is better to have some overlap and trim because if you have an older home like ours, chances are your walls aren't perfectly straight and it won't line up. I love having scraps. As I peeled it down, I used the wallpaper tool to smooth it all out. I continued moving slowly down the wall, working my way, making sure to keep smoothing the wallpaper out. I trimmed the extra at the bottom and then I used a drywall scraper and I pressed it into the corner and I ran my utility knife along the edge to cut the extra off. Pretty good. This made a really nice straight edge. The second thing I did was add a floating shelf, and I used 2x2s and secured one to the back wall into the studs, and then I secured 2 small pieces of the sides of the wall, but there were no studs available, so I had to install drywall anchors first. I attached the back corners to the back 2x2s. I added a small piece to the front, making sure everything was level. Then I measured and cut some cedar boards, and then I placed one on top and one on the bottom. I used glue and a brad nailer to secure them. And then I used another piece of cedar for the front. I used construction adhesive and taped it on with painter's tape so that it would stay. Once it was dry, I removed the painter's tape, but I didn't want any nail holes in the front because I wanted to make it look like it was one large board. I applied 2 coats of clear polyurethane to the boards, and those are my 2 steps, wallpaper and a floating shelf that I used to completely transform this toilet nook in my bathroom. What do you think? I hope this inspires you to make over your toilet area.